Ms. Zoha, we are live. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kamina. Thank you so much. So, good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all. I am Zoha Hussain, and I am truly honored to be your moderator for today's powerful session. And this session is part of our global mentorship series hosted by WomenAscension. Together, we are building a global community of emerging leaders, change makers, and purpose-driven professionals who believe in growing through self-awareness, confident communication, and meaningful mindset transformation. So we are excited to have participants joining from around the world today. Thank you so much for being here and thank you so much for showing up for yourself and for your growth journey. And the topic for today is one that speaks to the heart of personal growth and leadership. It is called Find Your Voice, Own Your Space. Communication, mindset, and identity in the journey of growth. So today's session is designed to help us explore how we can communicate more confidently, shift our mindset, and embrace our identity, especially in changing and often challenging environments. So in this session, we will talk about how to use communication as a tool for empowerment, how a growth mindset can reshape how we see challenges, and how to balance authenticity and adoption in a world that constantly demands both. So, this isn't just about theory, it is about real transformation through self awareness, self expression, and the courage to lead from within. And to speak on this topic, we are so excited and we are so honored to have with us our speaker, our mentor for today, Andy Lucchesi, joining from Spain. Andy is a digital content creator, ESL educator, business English course designer, and AI ethics advocate with over 15 years of experience. She has worked in journalism and she has worked with United Nations and is now shaping the future of education by integrating generative AI in language learning. So she's also co-founder of Skilling Future, which is a contributor to AI education at the Oxford University, which is basically an interdisciplinary AI research hub at the University of Oxford. So her work focuses on helping educators, students use technology mindfully to strengthen English communication, critical thinking, and leadership confidence. So thank you so much, Andy, for joining us today, and we are so excited to have you with us. We are so grateful. So I would like to ask you to take the floor now, and we will be enjoying the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Soha, and thank you, Tahmina, for before the minutes that you dedicated to the introduction. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you spending some time with me because I strongly believe on building, learning from togetherness and from everybody's experience. So, as Soha mentioned, I have been an educator for over 16 years. But originally, I graduated as a journalist, and my path was very different. But in the end, my my professional trajectory has always been within communication and education. And of course, when I certified myself as an ESL educator, I found the perfect opportunity to blend both. Now, what is it that I would like to do with you today? I would like for us to have an experience where we're going to build some communication skills, but at the same time, the presentation, the slides that I have prepared for you today are more reminders than anything else. Probably you have heard some of the things that I am going to mention here, but it never hurts that somebody comes and remind us of our inner power, of our inner strength. So, with no further ado, let's start talking about finding our voice and our own space in our professional fields. So, because language, when I was talking to Tafmina and the organizers of the talk, I was really inspired by all the passion that they put into this work, right? About creating these spaces. So I really wanted to provide something of value. So I asked, what is something that the women and any of the attendees in this space really struggle with. So some of the ideas that came out were struggling and in finding our voice, because usually we communicate in not our first language, not even sometimes in our second language, because sometimes depending on the fields that we move, we have to just find a way to just get the work done, right? And some of us have actually the ability to communicate in more than just one languages, right? So would you please be so kind and type in the comment section, what are the things that you struggle the most when you are communicating in your professional fields? Doesn't matter what is it that your professional field is. Could you please be so kind so I have a little bit of context? Thank you. I'll be waiting. Or if you don't want to type, maybe you can just open your mic and, maybe with one word, tell me one thing that you struggle with. For example, a lot of people tell me that just speaking English can be a huge problem. Because sometimes shifting from your first language to the second language, English or French, for example, or Spanish, whatever the language that you use, can be an issue. Oh, okay. So comments are starting to roll in. Okay, while Veronica speaks, I'm going to start. Yeah, Veronica, go ahead. Open your mic.
Yes, I always have the problem to express myself because I always feel like when I express myself, I'm always scared to make a mistake. So most of the times I just sit quiet.
Okay, thank you
I don't
for.
have good communication skills.
Okay, so thank you for that, because that is going to be here in the in my slides. Okay, so all the research that I did for this talk are gonna pay off. All right, so some of the comments here. My problem from Tafmina is my tongue twisting and vocabulary. Okay, yes, sometimes it can happen. Canvi says that the voice is mine or the emotional me. Maybe it's sort of like, I don't know if I interpret very well what you want to say. Canvi is like sometimes what comes out of you is not the calm and cool you, but perhaps like the more emotional you. I have an anecdote about that. Yes, if you like, you can please explain yourself a little bit better, Canvi. And then let's give space to Ambeya, because I think that she was first.
Yes, you got it right. That was what I was speaking about.
I beg your pardon? Sound is not good.
Sorry, now it's clear?
Yes.
Okay, you got it right, what you explained about my opinion. So that you got it right, that sometimes it is not the original me, but the emotional me. Like, for example, since we react, so like that kind of thing. But actually, I should not be. That was just a trigger that has made that voice. So that was my insight on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes. I mean, sometimes that can actually be a struggle. Yes. Ambeya, can you tell me a little bit what is your struggle?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I mostly have difficulty to understand the right words to be used, because at times when you are to interact with people, you try to avoid to hurt their sensibility, and that can be really difficult when you want to pass a message. I usually find it difficult to know which word can I use to pass this message, or which way can I use to pass this message without actually hurting the sensibility of my audience.
Okay, well, that is a big one, and it's going to be discussed as well. Thank you. Navonine.
Yeah. Good evening to everyone. Andy, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. I usually start with maybe a joke or something that would let people smile, and then I go through the point. When I want to start, I just say hello, maybe place a joke, feel comfortable, make them feel comfortable with the person that they have in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this is actually a really great advice, especially because in communication it's always like a two-way street, right? It's not just about you. It has also to do with the other person as well. So this is important. And it's going to be discussed as well. So here also, Soha says, connecting ideas precisely. All right, we're going to talk about that. Nargis says that they forget their words. Zainab says, I had struggled with addressing the public and speaking English fluently, as English is my second language. Ha, welcome to the club. So yeah, but now I am doing great. Well, that is so nice. Nargis says, I feel stressed and I forget my ideas. Yes, that is a trigger. Madhab says, I have difficulties in coming up with ideas and words. Sawira says, I face struggles like language barriers, lack of confidence, and body language. Sometimes it feels more difficult to speak up, even though I have knowledge. It happens to all of us. Who is it in this group who doesn't have like more than 2 masters? Maybe there are doctors in the room here, right, that have more than a doctorate, and we're like overqualified, but then there are situations where we cannot get unstuck. And all of that has to do with us communicating effectively. So, and the list goes on. Let me see. Janet says, not having confidence in ability to convey my ideas. Again, idea organization. Okay, people. So, and Navonina says, starting with a joke. Yes, exactly what you just mentioned. Thank you very much for sharing your struggles, because everybody that is in this room and out there in bigger rooms, for those that we think that the typical thought like, I want to be like this person when I grow up. Well, everybody struggles with this inner conversation with our inner critique. So I would like to share from my 16-year plus of experience of being a coach and a language tutor, how, especially in the business and corporative context, how important is the psychological game that we have to train ourselves into in order to be better communicators. So, why I decided to make this conversation about inner growth and finding our voice, because in my particular case, a little bit of an anecdote. I recently, 2 years and plus ago, I shifted from being specifically a coach and an educator for ESL to adding up to that role and becoming also an educator when it comes to artificial intelligence and a specialist in that area. So I went down a rabbit hole once more in my life to be more prepared. I think that some of the people in the room will understand that sometimes when we want to be in specific spaces, we need to have that preparation. And the field of AI is one of those that you either have to prepare yourself or otherwise you just sit and listen. So I decided to first sit and listen hard, and then dare to be in different spaces where I could share my knowledge. Now, in this case, we're going to talk about mastering professional communication and understanding that there is an ecosystem behind each one of our professional fields that we have to understand how to read. Then, cultivating confident mindset. This goes I think that this part specifically, the second point, is something that we're never going to stop doing until the end of our days, because we're never going to be the same individual year after year. Most of us will be lucky enough to work on our strengths and our weaknesses in order for us to grow Others, unfortunately, still have to revisit themselves internally a little bit harder than others, but the invitation has to be there. And then, of course, crafting our authenticity and identity. This part over here, I struggle with it quite a lot because of my own personal history that I am going to address further down the line in this conversation. So, the invisible rules of professional communication. This is reminder number one. Everybody that is in this room works and have worked in professional environments that probably have been directly into their niche and sometimes close to their niche and sometimes doesn't have anything to do with their niche. But there is something that we always have to be recognized for, and it's our integrity and it's our professionalism. I usually work with young adults and, of course, adults. But particularly when I work with young adults, I always like to remind them that if they decide to work on their values, their moral values, their integrity, their ethics, their professional conversations are going to be so rich. For example, we have to understand the hidden architecture that is behind each one of the ecosystems of work. Meaning that, for example, each office have or school, for example, if you're an educator, or for example, if you are a freelancer, because also if you move in a field where it's more freelancers and you find yourself in platforms like LinkedIn, for instance, or in networking platforms, we have to understand to read the room. So in this case, the unwritten rules are the ones that we actually have to take into consideration every time that we enter each one of those rooms, because our way to communicate is definitely going to be different. In this moment that I am talking about growth and personal development, personal and professional development, my conversation is very different from when I enter a room where I am talking specifically about AI in education. And perhaps this happens to you too. Now, the psychology behind these rules are actually really important because we always have to look inside ourselves first in order to radiate. Let me repeat that. We have to work our own fears, our own limitations first in order to irradiate what is it that we want to share with the public or the people that we're going to be spending that specific time. Why this is important? Because we can establish and understand not only our boundaries, but other people's boundaries. We can understand the status quo of that office, and then we can regulate emotions that have been part of the conversation in the comments, and as well we can understand the type of vocabulary that we need to use: formal, more informal, semi-formal, etc. Do I have to be specific, for example, in terms of being very technical, etc.? Then being strategic about how we value rule breaking. I love this quote specifically: learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. In this particular case, I really like this comment because when you know your company's role, or when you understand the ecosystem that you are rolling in, like for example, if you are a lot online and you understand who is who in that platform, that usually is like a pyramid more or less, because that's how our society and our mentality works. We can understand what are the layers of our communication with that person or group of people that we are trying to enter, right? Or that we're already in. So let's understand the invisible rules in order for us to regulate our communication. Now, in this case, I would like to offer some strategic framework for us to keep in mind whenever it is that we are feeling uncertain, or if we want to reinforce that inner strength when we want to communicate. For example, performance-based rule breaking. People are going to know who you are based on what is it that you do, not what is it that you say that you do. So you really have to prove, especially in competitive fields, like for example, artificial intelligence, that is highly, highly competitive. That is the field that I am right now. I really have to prove that it's not only that I know what is it that I'm talking about, I have to prove that I have owned the space where I am right now and that I am going further. Now, there are other spaces, let's say in education, also something that I can give real life experience, that you are also in a very competitive environment, not if you are in a digital space really, but if you are, for example, in schools or in specific districts, the competition can be actually quite high. So people will respect you for what you do, not what you say that you do. Then innovation-driven disruptions. What do I mean by this? If we want to disrupt, if we want to be a factor of change, we have to prove that that change that we want to bring to the table, it's something of value for everybody. Usually when we walk into a room, we walk with our own inner agenda, let's call it like that, which is totally valid. But we have to understand that if we want to be strategic, if we want to communicate better, we have to also understand that what is it that is for the other person that is going to make them listen to me, right? Because it's not just about the information or the value that I'm going to add. What is it that is it for the other person that is going to make it interesting for them too? So that's the way that they keep listening to you. Then boundary spanning communication. In this case, boundary spanning, it's about the ability to communicate effectively in a way that you can turn tables easily. What does it mean? It means that there are some specific cultural contexts that, especially for instance, in the academic sphere, that they are a little bit more rigid, and it's quite difficult to enter because of the language, because of this status quo, etc. You have to find a balance, especially if you're new in that context, where you can find allies in that communication that will help you climb that ladder. Then in this case, the art of purposefully being disruptive. In this case, when we are purposeful with our intention, that communication is going to be clear. So if you are being disruptive, people know that there is a narrative behind because you have been building on that. Do you see? So communication is not just about the words that come out of our mouth. It's because we are building a narrative behind that goes with a specific schedule or agenda that we want, especially if we're in professional settings. And well, of course, this one goes with challenging the common rules, which is like, hey, if it's not working, challenge it. And if you can implement something new, well, good for you. Now, specifically for my women in the room, but this also goes for the men that are also here in the audience today. In this case, I put in parentheses sometimes just to be polite, because at least in the environments that I have been to, it's like most times rather than sometimes, but okay. There are a lot of misconceptions here that I would like to break, but it's important that we keep them in mind, because when you are strategic about the situation that is happening to you, you don't make it personal anymore. So those people in the comments that said that they become a little bit emotional when they communicate, it's because you're making it personal. And not making things personal doesn't mean that you do not care about what is it that you're doing or what is it that you are trying to communicate. It's just that sometimes when you make things personal, you drift your focus and you start listening to those that critical the inner critique, or those inner voices that definitely are going to be distracting. So And here are some, factors that sometimes, when women are in a room that are not necessarily mainly women, or if it is mainly women, but these women, for example, belong to a high hierarchy of professional fields, like for example when there is like a big age gap, etc. And I'm talking about specific examples. I'm not saying that it's happening to you specifically, but these are like examples that exist out there, and if it resonates to you, well, just take the advice, and if it doesn't resonate, well, it was not just for you, it was for the person that might resonate. So in this case, why is it happening? We have to bear in mind that there is an unconscious bias. Culturally, wherever it is that we are on the planet right now, there is a cultural bias behind, and that is in multiple cases unconscious, because we have our own cultural scripts, not to mention our own maybe tunnel vision of life that is built from our own families and personal backgrounds, right? So that counts. The likability trap. I'm talking for myself, okay, as a female in professional environments that are usually high standard professional environments. There is always this tendency to be likable. Why? Because if you're not likable, you're going to be looked or perceived as if you're arrogant, or you're going to be perceived of the typical who the person she thinks she is, right? So that sort of conversation. Now, in this particular case, the likability trap diminishes your light, diminishes your ability to communicate authentically with your voice. And this is the thing. The likability trap is more about how do you think others perceive you rather than the reality. Sometimes it's more about that trap. So let's try to find the pattern and see if we are in that cycle. Then, of course, the lack of active support. What does it mean? Sometimes we need to find in the room that support that can be our anchor. And we're going to talk about this in a second. So these are some strategies that can actually change the game in how you communicate, regardless of the language that you're moving in. So don't wait to be invited. This is something that I actually learned later in life, because I am my mother's daughter, and unfortunately for me, I had to, like sort of like always be extremely polite in certain situations when I entered certain places, and try to, again, the likability trap and all that. But I missed many life opportunities because of that pattern, that it was not necessarily mine. So, how is it that I reinvented it? How is it that I reshaped it? Not waiting to be invited to the table. And being disruptive doesn't mean being impolite or being necessarily a liability, like being a person that brings trouble into the room. No, being disruptive, and in this case, not being necessarily invited, is you trying to propose original contexts for yourself so people can see you and can see what is it that you are bringing. So that's what I mean by not waiting being invited. Speaking powerfully. Now, this has to do with a lot of intrinsic work. And in this case, the justs, the maybes, that I think, yes, the shrinking ourselves, the that body language that we sometimes unconsciously use, it's a big deal, because these are patterns that we sometimes don't recognize. So find that ally to observe you and say, hey, am I doing this? Tap me on the shoulder and correct me. We can find that kind of friend. We always need that kind of friend. That's here the point. Then collaborate, not just compete. Also, something that I learned late in life. Why? Because in the structure, this societal structure where that I grew up, and if you wanted to be in a high stake position, being a female, and you wanted to be in, you know, like for example, journalism or some specifics in education that actually came later, my professional background, I always was into competition and not really into collaboration. It was only when I learned to actually collaborate from the heart and collaborating and sharing the knowledge with my colleagues is that I started to grow professionally, because there were moments in life that I felt stuck, or that even if when I achieved that thing that I wanted, it didn't feel right, but it's because I was not collaborating, I was competing. So then visible leadership. In this case, practicing visible leadership is this. I love being here today, sharing this space with you, because even if my story is something that might not be exceptionally different from maybe some of the many stories that we've got here, I am sharing it with you. And if it resonates to click something different in you, or it reminds you about your beautiful light, so be it. I am doing this visible leadership. It's not, we are not what we do. We are the people that we build from within in grace in order to share who we really are with others. That's where authenticity lies. So in this case, for example, finalizing this slide, don't get stuck in the likable button, because, well, people are, you're not for everybody, and that's okay. We have to learn. We have there is a beautiful book that I read recently, that we have to have the courage to be disliked, and it really takes courage, because it is in our social nature to want to be liked. So if we disconnect and we understand that, hey, you do you, I do me, fine. And how is it that this works in our communication? Because in that moment where you have this clarity, you are going to be able to organize your thoughts and what is it exactly that you want to say, and not what you think that you should say. I love to talk about NLP because I utilize this in my coaching sessions, especially when I am doing business English in corporations. Because if you have never heard about NLP before, it's about neurolinguistic programming. Let me repeat that. Neurolinguistic programming, meaning that the words that we use matter. The words that we construct, the way that we present ourselves to the world matter. So in this particular case, there are 6 steps that I would like you guys to get deeper. But here are excuse me. Okay. So in this case, I would like to share with you these 6 thoughts. The map is not the territory. What does it mean? It means that we have to be very careful to create our own specific mental maps when we are communicating. Recently, talking about artificial intelligence a little bit, because it's related to one of my latest research, is about how you can integrate artificial intelligence, in this particular case, prompt engineering, with learning English as a second language. For me, this is intertwined, because the better you organize your thoughts, the easier it's going to be for you to communicate with large language models that then can be translated into human communication. Does it ring a bell? Okay. So in this case, we have to work our mental maps in order to understand what is it exactly that I want to communicate first, and then develop the idea. That should be at least a way to organize that thought. Then moving here, language shapes reality. We're going to talk about this in a second in the next slide, but it really does. If you use words that have a negative or goes towards a negative connotation, and they and use them repeatedly, they're going to become part of your narrative. For example, going back to my younger students, when I have students that they say that they're shy, I always like to say, hey, there is okay if you are shy, but isn't it better if you say that you're reserved? And when they think about it, and I ask them to analyze what is the difference between being shy and being reserved, they understand. It clicks to them. Why? Because when you're shy, it goes towards something negative, something that socially we have made negative. But if you say that you're reserved, it means that maybe you're much more of an observer rather than a person that just directly jumps into things or do things without thinking. Do you see? There is a shift of mentality there that really it looks small, but it's so powerful. So then behavior follows perception. When I was mentioning before that sometimes the what we think others think about us, it's more of our projection that we've got about ourselves. Those people that, for example, they enter a room and they shine. I love that kind of energy. But that kind of energy is recharged because of their own perception. It is an intrinsic power that you have to fuel once in a while. And if you feel that you have to feed that fuel a little bit more than others, well, so be it. That's why we are unique human beings. That is what I love about meeting other people, because I have the unique opportunity to meet that only person that exists on the planet that is going to be that Mary, not the Mary that it's in my town, but that specific Mary that is perhaps I don't know, in Madrid, or that Zainab that perhaps is in France. Do you see? So I have that unique opportunity to get to know this person. Everyone has a unique lens, what I was mentioning before, basically because of all the background that we have, and on top of that, who we become while we grow up. People have or should have the resources they need. My advice is to come to conversations like this, go to therapy. And I know that this sounds a little bit simplistic, but it's actually really important. If you go to the doctor to ask about a rash, there is absolutely no shame into going to have deeper conversations to get to know yourself. And how is it that or what is it that this have to do with your inner conversations in professional and personal fields? A lot, because you are the one who actually have to show up, not the idea of you that you want others to have. Do you see? So in this case, you are the one who is responsible of your mental health. And this is that point specifically. No failure, only feedback. For those that were saying that they were struggling a little bit and they were focusing on the negative, well, what is life if not one, test after test? And notice that I am not using the word failure. I'm using the word test. And a test, it's something that sometimes you pass and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you have to retake that test. Sometimes that's why life loves to bring us, the same mistake more than once, because probably we haven't learned that lesson yet. And in communication happens in the same way. So take the things that happens to you as feedback opportunity, so you can get and assess. You can get back to you and assess, okay, without overthinking it, of course, and don't necessarily having to do it all the time, but the conversation should be there. So then the language of how language impacts in our beliefs and our perceptions. Here is an example. I always mess up presentations. Well, instead of saying that, doesn't it sound better if you say, sometimes I get nervous, but I'm learning to improve? Doesn't it sound a lot better? Or, this is impossible for me. What's one step I could try? Do you see? It's so different. It's about the same exact thing, but with such a different perspective. And this affects your communication and how people directly see you. Sometimes in the office, going back to a professional environment, office, school, whatever it is that we develop ourselves professionally, we find ourselves like annoyed by the people that are always complaining. If that is your case, I am the kind of person that is like always thinking like, how annoying is this person that always complain instead of trying to get out of that spiral? Well, it might help that you stand up and ask them, "Hey, is everything okay? Do you need any help with this or that?" Being kind can reshape that other person's narrative as well and yours too, and reinforces the collaboration idea that I mentioned before. So reframing negative self-talk. And here goes an AI tip that I think that you can find useful. I am the person that I like not necessarily to journal. I am not into journaling excessively, but I do like to dump the cognitive overload that I have into my phone and go to notes. What is it that I do, and where is the AI extra note here? I take those notes and I dump them into my large language model of choice. Mine is ChatGPT because I have been using it for 2 years now, 2 years plus. And I ask it to find the pattern that it's not letting me see through. This is actually really interesting because I am not asking to be my friend. I am not asking it to be my therapist. I am not asking it to, yes, I am just asking it to be what it is good for, to find, for example, patterns. So my prompt would be something like, I am sharing these notes with you that of how I have been feeling this week, these 2 weeks, this month. I need you to find a pattern that I am missing, or I need you to find the blind spot that I am missing. That can give you clarity. Maybe if it's something that it's related to a professional matter, it can give you clarity and then linked to your communication so you can reshape it. If it's something personal, the same thing. So when we're talking about patterns, that is a good way to see it. If you are a good observer, maybe you can just have that inner conversation with yourself without, the necessity of using any large language model, or, just the old-fashioned way, just talking to a friend, right? But I have a little bit of a thing about sharing things sometimes with people that we, of course, trust. But sometimes if we are in the office, probably you already know this, but again, today is reminding us certain things. Sharing certain things in the office space can be a little bit delicate because remember that you're giving people that are not really your friends, they are your colleagues, power about you. Do you see? So why am I talking about power? Because this specific information that you're going through and that you're sharing with this person, I'm not talking about an illness, or I'm not talking about, a parent or a son or daughter that needs some help. No, maybe things that are like sensitive. My recommendation is just to keep it out of the office. Just saying. So let's change the mindset. In this case, mindset and of growth and fixed mindset. In this particular case, this is very simple. Those who sometimes want to get to learn something tap into their growth mindset, and those that sometimes find themselves into the same patterns over and over and over, it's because there is something in their mindset that they need to find that is blocking. So when I talk about fixed mentality, of course, it can do a little bit with our behavior. I wouldn't like to say personality because these are things that we construct, but specifically in our behavior, there are things that we should notice. We should learn to notice and find these triggers. And finally, here are some advice for you to read later. That is a little bit of a compilation of what have been mentioned before. So, crafting your authentic voice and can be as simple as creating a bold introduction of who you are. Sometimes, if we don't introduce ourselves in specific ways, other people are going to do that for you. So it would be a good idea for you to have that specific intro so you know how you want, so you craft the way people see you. Here is a sample of mine. I am an ESL educator and AI strategist focused on unlocking human potential at work. And then I go, right? Why for me this is important? Because it's not about what I do, it's what is how I want to transform the things inside and outside with the things that I know and the things that I do. And then here are some techniques for us being taken a little bit more seriously, especially if we are in spaces that are new to us or that we still feel that we are not, or we feel that we are not like with enough authority. So here it goes. Project credibility. Well, in this case, be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. That's my motto. If you are prepared, whatever happens, like for example, when I thought that this was going to be like a 6-minute presentation rather than like the hour, I was like, okay, let's just shift the mentality, because why? I was prepared. I knew what is it that I came here to say. Then own your language. Who cares about your accent? Only you. Who cares about maybe, for example, if you come from this place or the other? You and some other people, but that people, if they care about that point, they shouldn't be in your circle. So these are the things that I really like us to remember, because those are sticks that we put in front of our own wheels. Do you see that? Don't let us walk through life smoothly. We are the ones who start putting the sticks. Ask powerful questions. You know that people usually hate, the typical elevator conversation, the typical small talk, because they are like the weather, conversation. Yes, it's cold. I'm wearing a jacket, obviously, right? So instead of that, try to really care about the other person. Ask if they were talking to you the other day about, I don't know, a movie that they wanted to see. Ask them, hey, did you finally watch that movie? And start a conversation. Do you see? And if you are in a meeting, well, try, especially because somebody before at the beginning of this talk, they were talking about like remember, no, they were talking about maybe using the specific words and how to not hurt people's feelings, where, well, in this particular case, it's all about active listening. When we practice active listening, the way that we communicate and the way that we speak is actually going to be more efficient because you were paying attention. Then mastering the nonverbal signs. This is not for everybody. Some people might consider themselves distracted, but others is because they don't care. For those who don't care, or for those to care too much, remember that this part goes with the first slide, with the ecosystem that we are within. Because I know how my parents move. I know when they're sad. I know when they're happy, that sort of thing. The same thing more or less happen with people that you see every day, more than 8 hours a day. Do you see? So we need to start caring a little bit, not just for your sake, but for everybody's sake. Then set boundaries with grace. Well, having grace is something that we have to practice, and sometimes pray to the Lord, because sometimes we really need to practice patience. But that goes into existing and being human, right? And then uphold your integrity. If you are a person who is constantly being in a space that you're pushed back, or that you feel that perhaps you are put down, if you keep your integrity and you start asking for a place on the table, that is going to be a lot easier if you maintain your integrity. Anchoring confidence goes with what I mentioned before. And sorry if I want to jump. Okay, so in this case, to close, so we can go to the Q&A. Claim your space with authenticity. It's very hard sometimes to define what authenticity is. So what I say is, like, being authentic for me, it feels like when I am wearing the right size of shoes. You have to feel comfortable in your own skin. You have to feel open enough to share who you are, but at the same time, also to have the capacity to embrace others. I think that has to do a lot with authenticity. And then shape the way that others perceive you. I have here a collection of books that we can talk about a little bit later. And if you think that others have mistaken you for some reason, or they have heard about you by somebody that perhaps have poisoned their own opinion about you, you have the right to reshape other people's view about who you are. This is going to build resilience, and it's going to help with your own personal growth. And of course, it's going to transform your professional relationship and personal relationship. So I hope that this talk had helped you. And remembering that each one of us have our own journey. And in order to communicate effectively, it doesn't have just to do with the language. The language is just one of the little things that accompany us through all the things that I have mentioned here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And it was really helpful for all of us. And thank you so much for the depth, clarity, and inspiration that you brought us today. And me being as a linguist, I think this session was really helpful for me. And I'm going to share my learnings with my colleagues and everyone. There are a few questions in the chat box, and I would like to read them for you if you want me.
96, okay. Yes, of course. Thank you.
So the first question is from Khushi Sharma. She's asking that in what ways do language differences influence interaction among team members, and how might these challenges be addressed?
Okay. I am not going to lie that, of course, that depending on how you sound, you're going to be considered in one way or another. In our own language, in our own native, as native speakers that we are of our first language, if you have a specific accent, you know that you are from a specific region, or that you come from a specific social economic background. Okay. This said, it is true that this can affect you professionally because of the other person's value. So when I was talking about having the right to reshape the way others think about you, it's this moment specifically. In if you think that this is going to affect the way that others perceive you, show them that you're not just that accent. Show them that you have owned the place to be there. And how do you do that? With your work, but also being strategic in the way that you interact with these people at work. Why am I talking about being strategic? And I know that this sounds a little bit Machiavellic, but it is actually important to understand that it is a game that you have to play, especially if you're new in that working environment. And even if you haven't been, even if you have been in that work environment for years, there are things that you have to know how to work. So yes, language affect the way that people see you and how you are in an office, but you have the opportunity to show them otherwise. I hope that I answered that question.
Yes, absolutely. You have answered it, I think, so perfectly. And I hope that it's clear to Kushi Sharma. There's another question by Glam Fatma. She's asking that how can we address age-related biases and build a positive working relationship with colleagues who might feel threatened by our rapid career growth?
Well, I would like to ask you the following thing. Is that something that you can actually control? Because sometimes the way that, and this goes with the how the particular lenses that some people have, right? I mean, if this is something that you can control in the way that you can reshape other people's thinking about what they think about you, and maybe they were wrong and they are like, oh, I'm so sorry, I was wrong about Maria. I thought that you were this way, but actually you are splendid, right? Because you reshape that conversation. But if it's something that you cannot control because it has to do with their own personal background bias, there is nothing there that you can do, unless that becomes something that, of course, is threatening. I'm not talking about life threatening. I'm talking about something as simple that maybe this person is your boss, and or this person is in authority place that it can jeopardize, for example, you escalating in the company. This is something that can actually be addressed, and you have to be very tactful. And you have to be very smart, because if you know that where this person is coming from, you should strategize and see your cards, play and play them, because you have rights too, and you shouldn't allow, other people's rights to step on yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. There was one another question by someone, I don't remember the name, but the question is how to collaborate in a toxic environment and toxic colleagues who are always in competition with you. So how can we deal with that situation?
That's a
Through
tough one, isn't it?
communication. Yeah.
That is actually a tough one, especially because I am the kind of person that I try to avoid conflict at all cost, because it really takes away my energy, my thinking energy, and my brain power. I like to dedicate it to something else. If that situation is bringing you, it's taking away your inner peace and the way that you're communicating, because that's why we're here, right? How do you communicate with this person? If you see that the way that you're communicating with this person goes beyond your patience, and you see yourself clearly altered every time that you communicate with this person or group of people, try to revise the patterns. I love seeing the patterns. The patterns. I'm neurodivergent, so I see patterns everywhere. In this particular case, I would like to. I would like you to advise. Sorry, I would like you to take yourself some time to analyze the situation. And my advice for you is to think, how is it that you can address it in a way that you can make it stop? Because sometimes, if you ask me, I think that you're talking specifically about a person that is a bully or a group of people that are bullies. And the only way that you confront bullies is just directly, talking to them and letting them know that you are not a doormat, that people can easily step on you. You might look like a very peaceful person, but let's not let them, believe that you are easily somebody that they can just toy around. Do you see? So I would try to first analyze myself and see if I can control that situation. If it's something that gets out of my hand, I would confront that person. And if not, just take it to HR if that is the case.
Yeah, that's perfect. And there are a few more questions. Let me see, and I'll try to read them for you. So there's one from Shweta. She's asking that what challenges might someone face when trying to express their authentic voice, and how can we overcome those fears or those challenges when we are trying to express our authentic voice in communication?
Okay. Okay. Well, I have struggled my entire life about how is it that I can express myself authentically, and let me explain why. Because of my parents' work, I never lived more than 2 years, maybe three was the top of time that I lived in a country. And I had to move over in my entire life. I am in my late 30s, so in my entire life, I had to move like, I don't know, maybe 20 times. So that's a lot, isn't it? Not only from one country to another, but within that same country, like in different places. So I've moved around a lot. But when you move from one place that culturally is very different from what you were warming up to before, plus your own personal background, there, for me, it happens in two ways. You can either enrich your inner voice and come out as somewhat unique, which is what I expect for most people, or you can come out in a way that you can close in your inner shell and maybe just open up to a few, right? If the case is the second, and you want to try to conquer this and go to the first example, right? Just coming out as this unique, true person that you know that you are, is trying to understand what are the things that are limiting you. The things that are limiting you are sometimes our own perception of, for example, thinking that maybe your background will be something that other people will, let's say, put it under a lens. Let me explain. My parents are half Venezuelan, but they moved very young to the States and then to Europe, and right, and then here I came in, right? So I have dealt with this, like, have to explain myself kind of thing, to the typical question, where are you from? Where are you really from? So that has been the story of my life. So how is it that I communicate authentically? Well, I always say that I am from the place that I am currently living in, plus the beautiful sauce and flavor that comes from my parents' roots. And not only because of their place of birth, but also the roots that are enriched from, my dad's half that it's Italian, and my mother's side that is French, Spanish. So do you see, I am not just like a version. I am many versions that make me me. So if you keep in mind that there is only just one you, and I think that this is quite mind-boggling, because in this particular case, realizing that there is just one you makes the narrative so different, because then if you don't play your role, who else is gonna? What is it that you're here for? I know that these are really big questions, but they are really important in order for you to lead your life with um, with this sense of value. And you're here for so many beautiful big things. So in this particular case, this question actually, it comes, very deeply, because I do understand about, like, okay, how do I show myself authentically? And I know that it sounds a lot like cliche, but being yourself. There is nobody else. There is just you on this planet that is you.
Thank you so much. And there's one question from Laiba. She's asking that how can we differentiate between our true self and the identity shaped by societal expectations, and especially when both feel so deeply internalized?
In NLP, in neurolinguistic programming, what we mentioned before, I'm not a specialist. I have just used some NLP factors in my coaching. Sometimes when I am doing my in company classes, and when I'm doing most of my mentorings. Um, am I there? The connection is there?
Yeah, you are here.
Oh, okay. Yes, for a second it just glitched. So when I'm doing some of my mentoring, I use I have a friend who actually is a specialist in NLP, and I adore her because for me it's like the best therapy ever when we have conversations when I feel myself stuck. Why this is so important? Because she once asked me a question that unstuck to me forever because and I always repeat myself this same question when I feel myself that I am like not moving forward. She asked me, what would happen if you just allow yourself to shine? What would happen? What would happen if you allow yourself, if you give permission to yourself to shine? And I couldn't answer. I truly couldn't answer because at that moment I wasn't prepared. I've never thought about it. Why? Because I was living up to other people's expectations and I was doing that so well, and probably people in the audience can feel, sort of like, yeah, I have so many titles, I have done this and that, but for whom? Did you actually did it for yourself or did you do it to sort of like please, parents, this idea that you think of yourself that you are, and maybe it's not, society, that sort of thing. Who is it that you were doing it for? So then years later, when I asked myself that, like, okay, who is it? What is it that it can happen if I allow myself to shine? And then one word came to my brain, and it was that I could heal.
Thank you so much. There's one question from my side. I don't know if it is relevant or not, but I really want to ask that when you're like communication is a very important tool and it's like magical. But when you're communicating with someone and we are giving them constructive criticism, but they take it negatively. So how can we change this mindset that criticism is only negative? It can be positive as well. So what are things that we should keep in mind when we are discussing such topic with someone as a like communicator? From my side, what
So
can I do?
you mean like, for example, when when you want to provide like positive criticism about something?
Yes, but they take it negatively, so
Sorry,
I change that mindset.
constructive. Yeah, the word is like constructive criticism. Sorry. Yes, that is what you're okay.
Yes,
Well, that is actually really hard, isn't it? Especially because when we're trying to provide some help, because remember that you are coming from a place where the other person might not be. Okay? So when you're going to open your mouth to communicate anything, think about these three questions. Am I going to change anything by opening my mouth and, sharing my piece? Yes, no, depending. Then you move forward. The next question is, if I am actually going to chase something, the next question would be, okay, is that thing that I'm going to change is going to make the situation better or worse? If the situation is going to be worse, if the answer is that if the situation is going to be worse, well, you're just defeating the purpose. If the situation is going to be positive, then my advice is to choose the right timing. Sometimes the moment where people are most stressed, that when we are just exploding in a moment of rage or sadness, or that's not the best way to just you know give that advice, or the typical I told you so. So my I think that my recommendation in this particular case is that if you're going to provide any sort of constructive criticism, is it really constructive, or it is you trying to impose your opinion on other person's life? Think about that, and then, well, you can
yeah.
open.
That is a really good question that we should keep in mind before opening our mouth. That's really true. And before wrapping up the session, I would like to ask one last question, and after that, we will take one last note from you. That the question is that what advice would you give to someone who is struggling to find a way to express their voice? What advice would you give them?
To express their voice?
Yeah, because there are people who struggle with that.
May I ask for some clarification about this? When you say like to express their voice like in a professional setting, like because it is like a new environment or yes, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys don't mind, I would like to share my own my latest experience about, this last 2 years plus have been really hard for me because it was a real challenge. I mean, not that the other things that I have done professionally weren't, it's just that this was really swimming out of like in another galaxy of complexity for me because I come from humanities and never in my life I thought myself doing anything related to anything with science. So, in this particular case, finding my own voice in this space that I thought that I was never going to be invited to, being considered or heard, and I still struggle with that sometimes when I don't feel like 100% like prepared, but I'm working on that. I try to work and tap into the things that I do know and the things that I have experienced, years of experience in, and also all the other things that sum up and add up. You are a mountain. Remember this. You are a mountain of knowledge, experience, of the things that you are a specialist and an expert about. So, because that new thing is not going exactly the way that you thought it was going to, or that you feel that in that specific space you received a no instead of a yes that you were expecting, that doesn't change the mountain. You still are a mountain. Perhaps you wanted to climb another one, but you still are a mountain. So in this particular case, finding your way to communicate is kind of like to remind yourself that yes, you might not be 100% there yet where you want to be, but you are on your way. And it's important to remind people that some people love to bring others down because, well, that is their MO, their modus operandi. That is how they behave. But that is not you, right? That is not your problem. That is their problem. If you let those people affect you, then it is your problem, right? But in this particular case, I would like to say that remember yourself that you are already a mountain of incredible things professionally and personally, and that should never be forgotten because of the last thing that you just decided to jump on.
It's absolutely true that we should be connected to ourselves, whether it's professional or personal journey. Our own self is very important that we should keep in mind, and we should consider ourselves, and then everything will be fine. We are just overthinking sometimes. So yeah, that your session was really good. There's one last question from Tommy. She's raising her hand, so I would like to ask her to unmute herself and ask her question. Yeah. Can we please?
Am I audible to all?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank the speaker. Like she really explained really well with the examples, real life examples. So my question is, in communication, I get a barrier of not being assertive. Like there is a resistance, though my intentions are very kind and humble, but I don't know why, because of my tone, I don't sound assertive, even in the professional settings, even in personal settings. So can you suggest something to me that I can work on?
There are several things. Thank you, Kanvi, for this, because there are several things that we have to analyze when this happens. Is it, before thinking that it is that you are the problem, that there is a meme around the internet that is like, it's me, am I the problem? Well, before jumping there, let's analyze the situation. For example, are you talking to people that perhaps are older than you, and being in situations where you, the last person to arrive, the younger one, is saying all the right things, but you're attacking their ego? Could that happen? If you are, for example, maybe using the incorrect approach, could that be? And that sort of questions. Do you see? Trying to understand the room and your audience first. This is actually really important. When I was preparing, for example, for this talk that I'm super happy to be here, I was kind of like, okay, who's my audience? Professional women who just are looking forward to continue their bright futures, women and men, because of course they are affected by similar things but with different lenses, and that sort of thing. So I needed to make it something valuable for everybody, right? So I just tapped into our human experiences. In your particular case, if you analyze the situation and the answer is not very clear, then go to yourself. Okay, is this what I'm trying to say is actually the point? Let's go back to organizing our thought. Am I communicating something that it is the thing that is important, or am I just communicating my opinion that doesn't add any value to the conversation? I'm talking about professional settings, okay? So if you ask and analyze yourself in that way, and your answers are yes, you were doing things right, okay, maybe you can stop the conversation politely, not in the middle of the room, but then take this person apart and say, I notice, this is something that I have done several times, and you can say, I've noticed that during my presentation, during my intervention, I saw that you were a little bit uncomfortable, or you didn't agree about whatever. Is there anything that I can do to make it better? Was there something that I missed the point? Or you see, this can work two ways. But you have to be alert, mentally prepared and alert to this. These people that can say whatever, and they can either take it constructively and make it a collaboration. Remember what we were talking about before? But other people might bring you down. So you have to be mentally prepared as well to the other person to be, well, a snake. So that is, we have to accept that a lot of people are just living in their own specific agendas, and there is nothing that you can do. If you have addressed the situation and there was nothing that you could fix there, just move on. We have to learn also to do that. I hope it helped.
Yes, you explained really nicely, and like you told the perspective also, two perspective. I really appreciate that thing, and I would revisit. I really like the thing you specifically at many times in the session you talked about like going inside and like controlling the uncontrolled and not the uncontrollable. So I really appreciate that thing, and you emphasized the thing that we should always go after the why. So that is also 100 of the things. So I really appreciate that thing, and I really enjoyed this session, and I would really appreciate that some other topic should be by you in near future. And thank you for accepting the invite as well. Thank you.
Thank you. This is really nice. And for all the kind words that you're, like showing in the comments, I really appreciate it. But that is the thing, there were moments that I was like, oh, don't cry. Yes, because I actually, for the person that says that they tap into their emotional self, I am that kind of person. I am the crier in the family. So there you go.
Thank you so much. We really enjoyed your session, and thank you so much for giving us your time. And you are full of energy, you are full of knowledge. Thank you so much. I hope you had a great time with us. And
Yes.
That before closing, I would like to ask you if you have anything like a closing note, would you like to say?
Well, here is my LinkedIn for those that want it. Here it is, and I will share with you, Soha, or Tahmina. I will share the PDF so you can share it later on. Because I have been trying to share, but for some reason it doesn't let me. But it's fine. I'll just share it with you so everybody can have like a calm reading of the slides, because I did it with that purpose for you guys to analyze and maybe recycle it for something else that you might need it for.
Absolutely, your presentation was so good that I was confused that whether I should listen to you or I should read that. So that would be really helpful for everybody to have those as a notes. So thank you so much for having us today. Thank you so much. We have already taken a lot of your time. So hopefully we will have another session with you in future. And I hope that you had a great time with Women Ascension. So thank you so much for everybody. Thank you so much, Andy, for having us, for being with us today. And yeah, so I want to leave it with you, note that our voice is our power, and our space is our right, and our mindset is our compass. So when we align all these three things together, we not only grow, we lead, we uplift, and we create change. So thank you so much for everybody who showed up today for their own self, and thank you so much, and hope that you are going to leave the session with some insights and some, I would say, helpful information with you that can help you in communication in your personal or professional life. So thank you so much. Stay tuned for another session and continue supporting each other. Thank you so much.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Bye. Thank
Have
you,
a great
everybody.
day.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
Miss
so
Andy.
much.
Bye.
Bye bye.